Thank you for joining Circle Optics 360 Pulse. I am your host, Jennifer Sertle, Director of Marketing at Circle Optics. 360-degree imaging is part of everyday life. Circle Optics technology is being designed to accelerate the delivery of life-saving resources, ensure aerospace safety, and enhance surveillance capabilities. This podcast, 360 Pulse, is dedicated to featuring immersive technology and innovators working on these capabilities. Our guest today is Dr. Charbel Rizk, founder, CEO, and CTO of Oculi, who spearheads the groundbreaking commercialization of a novel artificial vision architecture blending biological efficiency with machine speed. Rizk's collaboration ethos extends across academia, industry, and government sectors, showcasing effective technical leadership and mentorship, complemented by key contributions at aerospace entities like Rockwell Aerospace, McDonnell Douglas, and Boeing. We are so grateful to have Charbel here as our guest on Circle Optics 360 Pulse. A luminary in the signal processing, machine vision, robotics, and system engineering, he fostered innovation R&D models resulting in pioneering concepts and technologies. Dr. Rizk's collaborative ethos extends across academia, industry, and government sectors, showcasing effective technological leadership and mentorship. In addition, all of these things, he's an esteemed member of IEEE, AIAA, AUVSI, and OSA. His legacy remains synonymous with innovation, strategic foresight, and impactful contributions in cutting-edge technologies. In addition, Illuminate, the world's largest optics and photonics accelerator, his team actually won the $1 million prize. And that's a connection with Circle Optics because we were part of cohort number 2. And so I'm so excited that we have that in common. Can you just go ahead and share a little bit about what you learned from the Illuminate experience?
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. I'm glad to be here. The Illuminate experience was probably, you all will agree with me as well, it was really a very good experience. I recommend to any startup that is in the space to certainly apply. It's been a great experience all around, and it not only does it provide really a lot of the important ingredients and elements of helping an early stage startup. The team did a wonderful job. Besides being great people themselves, introducing us to the Rochester area. So that was a win-win also for the region because I was actively looking for a new home for the company, and they sold me on that area, early on in the program. I didn't tell them that until I won the $1 million program, but the prize, but it was good. So my famous line has become, my only regret is not participating a couple of years earlier. So
That's really great to hear. And we welcome you to the community, and I want to do everything we can to help support your growth here. And also those great connections in Florida, and a little bit down south. So I think being able to have that ecosystem expand through your relationship is really wonderful. Let's jump into your actual work. Your work fuses biological efficiency and machine speed. Can you elaborate on the pivotal inspirations for these breakthrough moments that allowed you to kind of get the vision for Oculi?
Yes, thank you. I always look back when we eventually realize we have something that is, innovative or potentially innovative. I always try to look back and review, the lessons learned to see if there is kind of a eureka moment, right? And there isn't one. Things happen over time, and it really involves a lot of events, a lot of people, a lot of discussions. People who claim that they woke up one night and then, they had this whole, I don't think they're real, sometimes you wake up one night and you have a spark, right? But in order to turn a spark into something big, it really requires a team effort and a lot of iterations. So that's literally what happened in our case. We weren't the first to think about adding smarts to the sensor itself, right? In fact, when I first proposed the concept to DARPA, they kicked me out of the door because they said we have already invested billions of dollars of similar concepts that got nowhere. So I had to really go over a major hurdle early on, right, of explaining why we are going to be different than everybody else, right? And so that's what we ended up doing. What what set us really apart, and today I believe the data points in the market are proving that we did converge to something that was very, potentially innovative, is that we approached it from a system perspective. That's really how I have developed technology all my life. I was never someone who liked to be pigeonholed in a particular technology or a particular research area. I was always someone who liked to develop systems and in particular smart and autonomous mobile systems. So when I looked at computer vision and machine vision from that perspective, I ended up driving in the direction of what we have now, which is, machines move, faster than humans. Computers process things faster than the human brain, but yet machine vision or computer vision remain very slow compared to a human perception and human vision, right? And that's something we recognized years ago, and we said, okay, well, how do we solve that problem, in a good way? So I laid out really more of a requirement on myself and the team that said, look, we want machine vision to be efficient, and we have human vision as a comparison of efficiency, right? And we want it to be fast, right? And we have, obviously, at the time, I was doing mostly defense work. A missile is an autonomous system, and it moves very fast. But it has no way of doing anything in the visual domain at the speed that it moves, right? And so we had the requirements of efficiency because a missile can only carry so much weight, so much power, and limited on size, but it moves very fast, right? So it was the strongest or the hardest requirements to meet, right? You want to be fast, you want to be small, you want to be low power. And that's really what drove us towards the Oculi technology. It was, like I said, it was an iterative process where you had moments of good ideas, but many, many moments of not so good ideas.
Well, for most of our listeners are startups, and we're hoping to do more and more deep tech just because I don't think there's enough programming for that. But for all of you out there, if you hear that you are coming across resistance, it means that you actually have a breakthrough, right? It seems like the more resistance you have, the more you're actually probably on to something there. I think
except if you're violating physics or science, then you should stop.
I love that you brought that up because one of the reasons Zach was able to create the 360 camera system that he did is he went back to the physics. He went to physics first rather than other people's interpretation of the physics. So be prepared for resistance and do make sure that you're doing physics first. Are we okay with that?
Yeah. I think I agree with you that the resistance you face in the world is proportional to how disruptive the idea is. That is guaranteed. If you're trying to make a big change in the world, you need to expect a lot of resistance. Okay.
So, I'm going to leap forward a little bit to cross-domain collaborations, because that's one of the things that I think you've done incredibly well. You've collaborated across various sectors, including academia, industry, and government labs. How do you believe these diverse collaborations impact the innovation process? And what advice do you offer those seeking successful interdisciplinary collaboration?
Well, the famous line, it takes a village to do something, right? And the equivalent to that really is it takes a team, a well-balanced team to do real innovation, okay? And I can guarantee you, even though I've earned the innovator title multiple times, in fact, most of my adult life, even in my younger years, I've always known that nobody has a monopoly on good ideas. There are some individuals that spark, good thinking, good ideas, right? Those individuals do exist. But to turn that initial spark or initial kind of vague idea into a real innovation, it takes the right team, okay? And in fact, that's one thing on the startup that I constantly highlight over and over again to the team is that, nobody by themselves is going to be able to take the company, including myself, right? If you bring my team members online, they'll tell you the same thing. I keep telling them that, I cannot take the company where it needs to go by myself. It's going to take all of us and more, right? And so when I was in my previous life, you have a lot of ego, right? In the world of academic in particular, you got a good bit of ego. In industry, it's less, but there's still a lot of NIH syndrome. In case you haven't heard that acronym before, it's not invented here syndrome, right? And so industry does have some of that, where they think, they have the resources, they have the team to be able to do everything themselves. And that's obviously not the case either. And so, I've been successful by kind of going over basically, I've been always after big problems, right? So that's one thing that motivates people, that to where early enough, everyone realizes they can't solve the whole problem themselves. So they have to play nice and then the other thing I try to emphasize is that once you form a team, you need to forget your badge, what your day job is, right? You become part of this team, and the success and the failure really belongs to everybody at that point. And it doesn't matter whether you're doing 5% of the job or 50% of the job. Nobody really cares at the end of the day, right? If you're successful, the whole team is successful. And if you're not successful, it reflects on everybody as well, right? So, it's those kind of things that you have to establish early on is that there's room for everyone, and check your badge and your ego outside the conference room. That's kind of, some things that not only do I preach, but I actually practice. And so, Oculi technology really got where it got because I collaborated with, multiple entities. We couldn't have done that all within the Hopkins team. So I'm a big fan of that model, and I think it could even be more effective in industry if companies kind of play nicer together. And I'm hoping to implement that model again within, Oculi as a business versus what I was doing before, doing research and what have you.
Right. And, with our region being recently designated as an entrepreneurship hub, the force function between Syracuse, Rochester, and Buffalo, I think I've been here for 20 years. And it seems that of all the times that I've been here as a professional, the level of incentive for high-level collaboration has never been better. And I think leaders, that we continue to practice and kind of make relationships with early adopters and kind of hope that continues to explode. As so many, as an innovator with several successes, I really would be interested into your approach to innovation. Did you create any methodology in terms of how you solve a big problem that you could share with our listeners?
Sure. Yeah, I do actually. I'm a big believer in a few things that I think are extremely important in driving real innovation. One is what I highlighted earlier, is to build the team spirit, right? Allowing people to take ownership, but also give them the opportunity to contribute, right? The world, actually, believe it or not, is built on a top-down model, where, managers act and employees feel that, managers are the smartest, they know everything, I got to just, right? And that's not the model that I believe in. Distributed intelligence is really how the nature is very efficient, right? You distribute intelligence across multiple functions, and so I think that's one culture I try to implement. But again, it's hard because everybody has been trained and lived. Like when you're in college, you listen to your professors, right? You think they know everything and all of that, so you go join a job and then you start listening to your supervisor. Very few people actually buck the trend, where they start questioning things, right? And I encourage my team to do that all the time, and I don't take anything personal. So, anyone is welcome to come and tell me, that my baby is ugly at any given time. And in fact, they're encouraged, right? So that's one aspect that is necessary in order for innovation to flourish, because as I consistently say, nobody has a monopoly on good ideas. I may have 90% of the good idea, but I'm still missing 10%. And unless I find that 10%, I'm not going anywhere, right? So that 10% may come from 1, 2, 3 other people on my team, right? And the same goes the other way around. One of my team members may have the majority of a good idea, but he's still missing pieces. And then he comes to others and then they fill in the blank, right? So I've seen that in action all the time. And I'm a big believer in it. The other tool that I use religiously, and I think it is extremely effective, is brainstorming, okay? Now, everybody hears the word brainstorming, but there are golden rules. If you don't practice the golden rules, brainstorming becomes just another nice exercise to check off the box, right? I believe it's a real exercise. It's very important for solving, real problems and for being, ultimately converging on innovation. And so brainstorming in my mind is extremely, extremely important. And anyone in the listener side who would like to learn about my version of brainstorming, I'm more than happy to share. It's very simple, but it's actually very effective. So at the end of the day, really, is what you want is all the brain cells to be firing, at maximum, right, and feeding into the objectives. If you want people to, if the people are distracted by anything else, they're just going to contribute less, and you're likely not to get 100% of what you want. That's kind of at a high level, my thinking and my approach.
Wow, a couple things before we move on. So the four, a verb approached leadership I hear: build a team, distribute intelligence, interrogate reality, and brainstorm. Although, as I'm spelling it here, it's BRAIN capital STORM. And again, I like
let me clarify. I didn't say distributed intelligence. The intelligence is already distributed, right?
Okay.
It's allowing it to really flourish and contribute, right? You have personalities that are different across your team members, right? So you have to learn quickly what's inhibiting them, right? And then try to kind of allow that to, and it's a balancing act, right? So in my previous life, I wore a professor hat, I wore a mentor hat for my, some of my colleagues and what have you, right? As a CEO of a small startup, where survival every day is important, right? It's been harder, right, to take the time and energy to provide the team members as much of my time as needed. So that's the balancing act, right, between a small startup and everything else that I've lived in the past. So it's a relatively new environment for me, and I'm trying to learn.
Okay, I'm going to try it again. That build a team, respect distributed intelligence, interrogate reality, and brainstorm. There is another colleague.
Respect and encourage, really. I mean, just let everybody know that they have just as good of an idea potentially as everyone else. It doesn't matter, yeah. Go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
Obviously, I'd love, it almost seems like I'd love to be in an environment where you were facilitating the brainstorming, because I feel like it's more of an experiential learn than a cognitive one, simply because I'm cognitively missing every time I fire. But you're welcome. We do those often enough in our company, not as often as we should, but maybe we'll do a live session of a brainstorming, because I used to teach my students that as well, and so one of my lectures was literally focused on brainstorming. But it's something that you have to practice, right? It doesn't happen naturally, because our biases. We've been growing up for years
And that's the good and the bad thing about the human brain. We have a lot of muscle memory in our brain, right?
Yeah.
And so if you've learned bad habits for many years, one lecture and one semester and 2 semesters are definitely not enough to weed out that. And so I still work on myself. Actually, I pick up things in myself. I'm like, man, I still have that bad habit. So so brainstorming is like learning math and science in my mind. It's enabling a function that is extremely, because I go back, and anything that I consider to be innovative that I had worked on has definitely come from different events and different discussions and that's why I'm a big believer in it.
Well, I think that's just it. The like words don't do much, but it's like your belief system. It's the particle wave thing, right? Is that like your belief about what's possible with your team makes it an extraordinary team. And anyway, I think we will definitely come back to that, which is great. I really would like ethical implications of advanced technology, right? Because as technology rapidly advances, ethical considerations become more critical. And I'm wondering what ethical principles or frameworks guide your work in pushing the boundaries of technological innovation, especially because you are augmenting human capability and are, even point out that the velocity of human cognition is just not at the same speed. So, how do you talk about ethics? What is your perspective about ethics, especially in fields like AI, machine learning, and autonomous systems?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a very good question. I think about it all the time. In fact, that was something I asked myself all the time, because I spent most of my adult life in working in defense, right? So until a few years ago, I was working on, and in many cases, I was working on weapons, right? So it really always comes down to, at the end of the day, any technology, anything that we have today, right, can be used for good or bad, right? And we cannot do anything to prevent that outcome, because at the end of the day, evil is caused by humans, right? It's not like the machine by itself is going to do. So I would be opposed to ever allowing full autonomy, and even if there is a remote possibility of the machine causing injuries and damage. Okay, so I think full autonomy is only justified in my mind when you can guarantee 100% that it's not going to do something bad. Okay, so that's my rule. Okay, that even though I've been working in this space since the early 90s, I would not turn anything into fully autonomous systems unless I'm 100% convinced that it will never do a bad thing, right? And 99.9% is not enough for me. And so at the end of the day, it comes down to humans, right? Making the right decisions or the wrong decisions. I compare that to the justice system. Like, I prefer thousands of people who are actually guilty going free than a single innocent person going to jail by mistake, right? So the bar is, in my mind, is much higher in that direction. So, and the same goes to really AI and autonomy and where we're headed. I would rather see 100% solutions, that 100% accurate solutions before we eliminate the humans. And but at the end of the day, again, the humans are going to do more damage than any machines that I know of. Anyway.
Is there, the last question I have, I ask everyone, we believe in Circle Optics that readers are leaders. Is there a particular book that you recommend to your team, or that has been deeply influential for you as a young leader emerging to have such impact that you have today?
Another good question. I could tell you I've read a good number of books. My encouragement to each one is to write your own book.
Mm.
That's really what I tell everyone, because my experience on this venture has been unique and has really forced me to write my own book. So there are many books out there that can be inspirational, that have, good lessons learned. But at the end of the day, I would encourage you to write your own book.
On your own book, what would the title be, or what is the title of your own book?
Lifelong learning. The best, really, and the most enjoyable thing I do personally is to learn. It doesn't matter what the actual action is. As long as I feel like I'm learning something new, that's the one thing that I enjoy the most.
That's wonderful.
And so that would be my advice to everybody. If you focus on learning, if you're a college student, the grades will follow. If you're an entrepreneur, success will follow. If you're anything, if you're a parent, success will follow. Just constantly learn. Don't ever convince yourself that you know all the answers, that you have reached, that you plateaued. My late father used to always push back against me and tell me, look, I'm 60 years old. I've been doing this for 60 years. You're going to change me at this point? And I used to say something that may come across as rude, but I actually truly believe in. I used to tell him that if you want to stop learning, you may as well die. What would be the point of living at that point? And that's literally what I believe. So.
You have been listening to Lifelong Learning from a lifelong learner, Dr. Charbel Rizk, founder, CEO, and CTO of Oculi, friend of Luminate, friend of Circle Optics. We'd like to thank the Institute of Optics, Genius New York, Luminate Accelerator, AFWorks, Cider Technologies, Archangel Imaging, and AUVSI. Special mention to our producer, Scott Fitzgerald at RockVox Studios in the heart of optics here in Rochester, New York. By all means, I hope you subscribe to our program 360 Pulse. Find us on X and LinkedIn. We're very interested in how immersed technology positively impacts safety and human connection. And if you have a story or someone we should feature, please email me at jennifer@circleoptics.com. Thank you for joining us.